Writer is one of the many occupations Sharon has mastered. She has had 2 books published and is currently working on a 3rd, and they are as diverse as she is.
English. You probably haven't come across that name before. There you go. Thank you. And I give you one of those. Yeah. Great. I'll give you another one in case you want to. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. You have a good day. You too. Bye-bye.
Upon returning from China, you wrote another book.
Yes.
Your book was published, Beyond the China Sea, and I found it an interesting read in that it was your daily life experiences, and I think for anyone who's going to travel, if nothing else, it's a great travel tip book. I mean, you talked about some of the pitfalls with visas and whatnot, so it was really interesting. Now, did you write your book as a daily journal, or did you, when you got back home, did you sit down?
No, actually, the book began as part of some emails that I had been sending to everyone back home. And some of the stories were quite long, so several people had emailed me and said, wow, these are really great stories, you know, you should write a book. So I thought, okay. So I started writing the book, and then about the 3rd chapter I lost everything. And I thought, okay, this is an omen, I'm not supposed to write this book. But I sent out an email and asked if anyone had kept any of the emails that I had sent them. And lo and behold, one of my fans sent them back one at a time. They just kept coming, 1, 2, 3, 4. There they all were. Within 5 minutes, they were all there. And I started over, and when I came back, I organized it and put it into some novel type format, and it went from there.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, and I've noticed that in this book, like your first, you've got some poetry in there. At the end of a chapter, you'll put a poem in, and I enjoyed reading those too. Would you read one now for us?
Absolutely. When you open your heart and feel, you will begin to awaken to all around you. When you feel with your heart, only then will the words begin to flow. When you write what you feel in your heart, the description will begin to flow in a direction beyond your imagination.
As I read that for the first time, I guess I was thinking of you, because you were saying when you write with your heart. And as I read the book, I think you really did. It was a real easy read, as well as an interesting read. Would you go back to China?
Absolutely, in a minute.
And do the same thing?
Yes, I would go to a different part of China. China has so much to offer that you could spend your entire lifetime there. But yes, I'd go in a minute.
Now, we've mentioned that you've had a variety of occupations over your working career. What's the longest time that you've stayed in any one job? And what job was that?
It's usually about 5 years. It's never planned that way. It's the longest one would have been the construction job. And usually by about 5 years, another new challenge comes along, and you just got to go with it.
Well, you had said when we were talking earlier that you didn't want to do what everybody else does. And that rang a chord with me, I guess. Why so diverse? Why do you embrace change the way most of us don't?
It just keeps things interesting, you know, and sometimes you just have to do things in life to give yourself that extra lift. So I always find challenges that give me a boost, something that you can work towards that's really difficult. And if you achieve it, then that's even better.
Now, it seems that no matter where you've been in the world, whether it's been in Asia or whether it's been in Australia, you've worked wherever you were. You've worked in order, obviously, to sustain yourself while you're there. How is working abroad different than working here at home?
Well, in Greece, I worked there as a dishwasher, and it's kind of lackadaisical. That job was, you know, you do dishes for half an hour and then there's nothing left to do, so you'd go and you'd lay on the beach and wait until there were more dishes. When I worked in Australia, I had, you just pick up jobs, whatever you can get. And this one particular job was picking apples in an orchard. So I picked apples, and one day I fell out of the tree, but they gave me a job inside running a forklift. Now, as I had grown up on a farm, so I'd driven the tractor and I knew how to work all the equipment that went with it. And I thought, well, driving a forklift couldn't be much different. However, it works backwards, and I drove the forks through the door in the cold storage, and it came off, and that was the end of the job. But you know, I left on good terms, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, when you were in Greece, and you didn't finish that story either, I recall you telling me that your dishwashing on the beach led to something else as well.
Well, the reason I worked in Greece was because I ran out of money. So I needed to get money to go back to England so I could catch my plane to go home to Canada. So I had no idea how much money I was actually making, but I knew that when I left there I had enough money to get from point A to point B, and I did make it home.
Now, you've mentioned before that when you travel you just sort of pick up and go. Is there ever any research involved? Do you ever try to find out what's waiting for you on the other end?
Actually, when I taught in China, I did a lot of research. I went on the message board for ESL teachers, and I picked several people who had a good experience teaching abroad or even in China, and they actually helped me to get the position that I came up with. I do research for any trip that I go on. Usually I try and find a trip that has some adventure to it, some history, some culture, and then I just book a last minute and go. Now,
you're obviously very adventurous. Is there anything that you are afraid to do or afraid of?
Well, the big one is this is kind of odd, but I'm afraid of flying. Although the flying, you can go anywhere you want. It takes no time to get there. There's always this procedure I go through beforehand, and it's because I'm afraid of flying. And then there's another procedure when I'm actually on the flight. But writing is one of the ways I keep myself sort of mellowed out.
Now, it hasn't been that long since you've returned from China. Where's the next trip?
The next trip I'd like to take would be to Peru, Argentina, maybe Brazil area. I have this fascination with Machu Picchu, which is the Inca temple on top of the mountain. And I was actually supposed to go on a backpacking trip with my friend George. However, we haven't made it yet. So perhaps that's in the future.
So will that just be a vacation, or do you think you're going to do some work while you're there too?
Well, actually, I never plan to do work when I go anywhere. It just kind of happens.
It finds you.
It does.
But for now, you're working here at home, and you're also working on another book.
Yes.
Tell me about your next book.
Okay, the next book is called A Large Double Double, Please.
And what is it about?
The book is a humorous look at what happens around coffee shops, drive-thrus, behind the counter, in front of the counter. It's an anecdote of humor that's every day-to-day, everyday life that people go through.
Sounds like fun. I can't wait. I've enjoyed your other two books.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed chatting with you too, and somehow I can't think that your travels have stopped or your varied careers have stopped. I don't know, will you ever stop?
No. No, there's always something in the works.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Sharon. Thank you
too.
For your time.
Thank you very much.
Sharon's spirit of adventure is almost contagious. For her, there's nothing as exciting as living and working in another country. Makes us all wonder if we haven't been a little too cautious with our choices. For One on One, I'm Linda Murtha.